Well, good morning, Downsview. Pastor Pete here in my office around, what time is it? 10 after 8 or so on a Tuesday morning. And that makes that the 17th of November here. A week or so ago, it was 20 degrees out, and it looks like today there may very well be some snow coming. So I suppose we can only have this, summer and fall for so long here. And later this morning, Grant and Errol are coming over, and we're going to be throwing out a few things that we had down in our furnace room, things that shouldn't be in there. And Raphael and Gabriel, as you know, did such fine work earlier this summer to upgrade our ventilation system so that it's even a safer place on Sunday morning. But we realize that there's some things down there that can't be stored in that room, and so we're remedying that, and we'll be tossing some stuff out. And most of you have not been in my office. You're always welcome to come in. And for some reason, it seems to be the kind of place people like, don't go in the pastor's office. So whatever, come on, there's a couch here for a reason. There's, coffee usually on, or at least there's a coffee station in my little hospitality area there. And I'm always glad for people to poke their nose in and help themselves to the books, whatever. It's fine. The things that are confidential are put away, that people don't know where they are. But anyway, I love this little office. I'm glad to be here. I've got lots of room. The guys redid the floor just maybe about, must be a year and a half ago now anyway. Igor and Ivan had arranged for that to be done. And the fact is, when I look around, having just redone this, and I'm thinking that we're going to be throwing some stuff out later this morning, I don't know if you're anything like me or not. Pam is not. Pam is good at throwing stuff away. I'm the hoarder. I'm the one who just doesn't like to throw things out. When we moved here 3+ years ago, going from a 4-bedroom house in the Sioux to a 1,000-foot square apartment building with just 2 bedrooms and a little tiny storage room, boy, that was not easy for us, and particularly not easy for me. We threw out so much stuff, gave so much stuff away, and honestly, even once we moved it into the apartment, we probably spent the first 2 or 3 months getting rid of stuff that I thought we could keep this, but we can't. It seems like there's always a bag of Sally Ann clothing near the front door, and we kind of have this working principle in our house for years, that especially when it comes to clothing, if you buy something new, you got to give something away, because none of us are getting clothes for the most part because it was something we didn't have in our wardrobe. It was something that we would like, and we'd like this other thing. It's like, okay, we can do that, but we're not just going to keep amassing things. Now, I do pretty well with that, with clothing, but boy, other stuff, I just don't want to throw it out. I don't want to give it away. I don't want to do without it. And part of the reason for that, I think, is that there's a certain affection for the stuff that we had, because there was a time we really needed it. There was a time that we were so certain that this is what was required for us. And, if I throw it out, I won't have it. And I might need it, And after a while, things have just, their life is gone. Their effectiveness is no longer there. And, we find ourselves saying, we're not going to use it. We haven't used it. There's been stuff that's been sitting around, in this case in the church, literally for years. No one's opened the box. No one's touched it. All we do is move it from one room to another because we might need it. It's not good use of what God has given us, is it? It's just, there's times to get rid of stuff, either to give it away or to toss it out. But again, we look back when we're about to get something new or do something new, and we just think, I'm so used to having that. I'm so used to things being in a certain way. I'm so used to being able to count on the familiarity and the comfort that comes from familiarity, and the security that comes from comfort. Familiarity, comfort, security, that I just don't want to make a change, right? And so part of that is, it's a reality in my Christian life and yours, I'm sure, that, you think, if I make a significant change, it's just going to seem so weird. It's going to seem so odd. It's just not going to feel right. Well, the people of Israel knew that, didn't they? The people of Israel in the time of Isaiah were unwilling to listen to Isaiah's prophecy. And almost a century later, Jeremiah comes along and says, basically, I'm going to tell you the same thing that Isaiah said, but you didn't listen to him. And because you're not listening to me, look, here come the Babylonians. And they're going to come and they're going to destroy our land, and they're going to drag away the very best of us in chains and in slavery. And what a horrible, horrible reality God spoke to them about through Jeremiah. No wonder they didn't want to hear it. I mean, you talk about throwing out things that you don't need, but you want to hang on to them because of the familiarity and the comfort and the security. Boy, being secure in the land of promise that God had given them. But of course, they had failed to live in a way that honored the one who gave it to them. And they were facing severe national, ethnic, geographic discipline. And many of us look back on those times, and you see, even in the midst of Jeremiah's prophecy of difficulty, that there's a promise of deliverance. Right? That in that passage in Jeremiah 29:11, that look, I know the plans I have for you, right? They're plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. And we cross-stitch that on a pillow and we put it up on the wall, and we just think, oh yeah, that's like this life promise for all of us. Friends, the context of Jeremiah 29 is horrible. People didn't want that to be the case, certainly didn't want that to be true. And if you notice that what's happening there is in verse 10 of Jeremiah 29, for thus the Lord says, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will visit you I will visit you and I will fulfill to you my promise and bring you back to this place. Well, that's good news if you've been hearing about the prophecy of destruction. But boy, in the midst of verse 10 of Jeremiah 29, he's saying after 70 years have been fulfilled. We've been less than a year with this coronavirus, and we're all going crazy, right? Mental health is out of the world and people can't stand it, and we don't want to be this way. And a lot of that is legitimate, difficult times for folks, and we've been praying for that and continue to pray for that. I was saying to our friends up north, one of the things that we built up an immunity to here in the Toronto area is the panic of getting this. And folks who have, under 100 cases up north where we're originally from, they're just terrified, just absolutely terrified, and in many ways paralyzed because they just can't imagine what it would be like to contract this virus. Here we are in Toronto, and we had 70 cases this morning, and that's not a small thing, but we are no longer immune, or we built up an immunity to the fearfulness and the panic about getting it. The other side of it, of course, is we've also built up an immunity to common sense and reasonableness, and we're just not going to take it anymore. We've lost our patience, and we've had enough, and we want it back to our cushy, easy, normal life. Well, here the people of God are being told, look, your life as God's people is going to change dramatically. For 3 generations, essentially, you're going to be this entire nation under the captivity of this foreign pagan land that God is using to discipline you. But listen to the trail of thought, or the train of thought here. And I think it's helpful for us when we think about, how do we get through when these massive life changes happens, whether that's in throwing things out or massive changes within our lifestyle. He says, I will fulfill to you my promise, and I will bring you back to this place. Because, why am I going to do that? Why is that going to happen? For I know the plans I have for you. Well, we think, there's plans that are going to be wonderful. Yeah, there's other plans that he just spoke about. It's his plan that you're not going to be here for 70 years. And I'm not bringing you back until 70 years have been completed. That's not the best news in the world. And so, again, you got to dive into the context of this. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil. Okay, so this is not the only plan. There's a plan that's going forward, and there's going to be something good. Plans for your welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Well, that is good news. That's very good news for the people of God. But listen how he explains himself. I will give you a future and a hope in verse 12. Then What will happen then after these 70 years? How's this plan going to unfold? You will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You'll seek me and you'll find me when you seek me with all your heart, and I will be found by you, declares the Lord. That's his plan. You're going to call, you're going to pray, you're going to ask for deliverance. I'm going to hear you, and I'm going to be found by you, and I will restore your fortunes and gather you from all the nations and all the places where I have driven you. Oh, he allowed it. He did it. He caused it. He ordained it, and he permits what he ordains. This is God bringing about his plan to all the nations and all the places where I have driven you, declares the Lord. And I will bring you back to the place from which I sent you into Babylon, into exile. God's plans for his people they're difficult to apprehend. They're even more difficult to comprehend. They're difficult for us to receive, even going forward, thinking this is what God has for us. And yet, Downsview Baptist Church, brothers and sisters, there are major changes that have continued to be coming in our lives. And change for the Christian is a good thing. The commentator Matthew Henry says, God does not change to his own detriment. Meaning God doesn't do things different with his people so that it's worse. Not ultimately, not in the long term. No, God is saying, listen, these are the things that I have for you. And what's happening now, even in the midst of these challenges, it's a small thing to be throwing some garbage out at the church, but some of you are thinking, boy, there's some major changes happening in our lives. Understand this, dear friends, that it's God's plan to care for his people. That's what he's ordained for his people. And to trust him really is a significant requirement for us in our lives. Trusting means I believe he knows better. I believe that God has brought me to it, and God has promised, because it's his plan, to bring me through it. Now that through it may take a lot longer than we're comfortable with or hoping for or desiring, but the fact is that's what God's up to. That's what God's doing. That's what God is about. That's the business that he's in. And so this morning, dear friends, trust him, seek to trust him more, and seek to embrace the plan that he has for our lives, knowing that it's for his glory in our lives and ultimately for our good. I hope you have a terrific day in the Lord today, friends. Cheers.